Welcome to LC's Screen Talk, and today we have a very special video. I am Larry, and I'm joined by my friend Rachel.
Hi!
And we are doing a collaborative video in which we share our 5 most underseen blockbusters, major studio films from 2017.
So this should be pretty fun. Hopefully you can go check these out when they come out on Blu-ray or DVD.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our picks probably are already there, so make sure you go check them out. They deserve bigger box office numbers than they got.
Yes. Okay, so my first one that I want to talk about is Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And I think that people say they want original sci-fi, but they don't actually really want original sci-fi. They want the same sci-fi, which is fine. But I thought this movie had things I'd never seen before, which is hard to do in sci-fi. It had sequences that were so fun and engaging, and like the whole the invisible market was so cool, and like when he's like running through the levels of the planet they're on, like that was really good. I actually thought the Rihanna section was good, and I thought it was kind of emotional, and I thought it worked. And some people said it was convoluted. I didn't really think it was convoluted. I thought it was pretty simple. They're just looking into this disappearance, what's going on with this planet, and it's just like a detective story. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I thought it was entertaining, and I think it deserved to do a little bit better at the box office.
Yeah, I'm definitely one that had my problems with the storytelling in Valerian with that script, but I had fun enough. I saw it twice in the theaters.
I guess it's not the kind of movie that I go to for like a really great script. Like even the original Star Wars, it's not like the script is that great, or the acting is so great. But it's fun. It's enjoyable. You see cool visuals and
the visuals really were great in Valerian, and I loved that marketplace scene. I thought it was really inventive and cool. And I loved Rihanna in the movie. I know people like to. Listen, you shouldn't just discount people because they're singers and think that they can't be used properly or like give a decent performance. I thought Rihanna did exactly what she needed to do.
Playing a singer, it worked. I liked it.
She wasn't asked to be Meryl Streep. She just kind of did what she was asked, and she did it well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie. So if you didn't see it, check it out on Blu-ray.
So for my number 5, I am going with Detroit. I think that people maybe didn't go see this film because it was very evident right off the bat that it was going to be a tough watch, it was going to be heavy, and with the racial climate that's kind of been taking place over the last at least year, or actually a little bit longer, I think maybe people just feel like, I get enough of that on the news, I get enough of that on my social media, I don't want to go and sit in a movie theater and experience it. But I think especially the way Kathryn Bigelow directed the first 2 acts, and that middle act in particular, where it's basically like a home invasion thriller horror in the middle of this like drama, was so well done that it really should have been seen. I think it's a very solid film. It's one that kind of just shows us that, history doesn't change as much as we like to think it is. We get into our own little bubbles and our own little spaces, but there's still so much to learn, and I think this movie really kind of showcased it and came out at a good time to showcase that. I think the third act kind of slows a bit and drags too much. But it's a film I think people should see, and I was sad that it didn't.
Yeah, I was sad too. I was reticent to see it though, so I kind of understand. Just because I was just like, I don't know if I'm up to it today. I kept saying that, and finally I was just like, I need to go. I just need to get in and go see it. And I think that it was extremely brutal and extremely violent. But it was very I felt like kind of clinical about it. It almost felt like a documentary. So I don't know, it wasn't as, I felt like as brutal in a weird way as something like The Glass Castle or something like that, where they really try to wring your emotions with this violence and things. She just shot it. Very clinical, very this is what happened kind of feeling. And so I don't know, I was able to tough it out and deal with it.
I also think Kathryn Bigelow, in saying that, she was pretty fair. I don't feel like this felt super slanted, oh my god, I feel like she told it, and I mean, this is kind of the facts that were there, but I feel like, especially when it came down to like the riots at the beginning, I felt like she gave as balanced of a view as she could for the subject matter. I don't think so.
Yeah, it felt fair. I'm no expert on the subject,
Yeah.
but it seems fair to me. Okay, so my next choice for something I think was underseen is a little movie called Megan Levy. And this, most of the like PTSD, Iraq, Afghanistan kind of movies, I think have been really bad. They've been really like heavy-handed about either, most of the time they're very anti-war, they're very like, look how terrible, look at these things we did to these people. And I'm not saying there's not a place for that, but like it can just be kind of overbearing and just kind of end up being kind of boring and just not really work. Or they're like super nationalistic and look how great the troops are and look how brave they are and whatever. But I thought that this did a really good job of just focusing on one person and her struggle and just the simple little wish that she has to have this dog. I thought it was a really good performance with Kate Mara. I thought that the supporting work was all solid and enjoyable, supporting actors. And I like a good like inspirational, feel-good kind of story. And this, I think, was because it was so simple. And it made you want to like go out and do something small for somebody and help them and maybe listen a little bit better to people. Because there were a lot of people kind of trying to give her advice, but not like actually listening to what she needed, but trying to tell her what she should need. And I don't know, I thought it was a really solid little movie that I liked. So.
Yeah, Megan Levy kind of falls in the good, but I forgot about it kind of category. But you all know I'm a good sucker for animals and animal movies. So I did enjoy Megan Levy, and I thought their bond was really special. So.
Yeah. I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to segue into an animal film that pretty much will always, every single year that they're released, be on my list, and that is Born in China. I think that Disney Nature does such great work, not only on screen, because the cinematography and the way these are shot are just beautiful, and these nature documentaries, if you've ever watched Planet Earth or anything like that and seen the behind the scenes stuff, so much work and so much time. These people like trek out into the forest and just literally sit there for like a year following like one little family of animals. And it's just like, oh, respect their work. They work so hard, watch it. But this one had a cute cast of characters for one. I mean, baby pandas. How can people pass up on a movie about a baby panda?
I don't
but
know.
all of them are so cute. I think this is a great intro, definitely for children to get into the nature documentary type films. I think this one wasn't as heavy-handed in pushing a narrative as the last couple have been.
Monkey Kingdom. Monkey Kingdom had a lot of sections that felt very staged to me. Like there's this whole like one part where the monkeys come in on a birthday party and like the cake's sitting out there and it seemed a little like who leaves like a whole party like sitting out there like in the middle of the. So there were some things like that, but I didn't feel that way with this. And like there were so many parts where I was like, how did they not die? Like I know they have those super long lenses and stuff, but still, like you have animals that are like at certain points starving, and if they knew that there were humans to eat, they would eat them. And so somehow they managed to not die.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And I really enjoyed Born in China. It's and it's done in a very like the kids when I went to see it were really engaged, really loving it. And I think that maybe some people think, oh, this is going to be boring. This is going to be dry. It's going to be like those David Attenborough things for like the BBC. It's not like that at all. They do try to make sort of a narrative. They give the animals names. There are some things that are hard or sad, but that's helpful. Like it's important to talk to kids about that stuff. And so I think that it's definitely worth seeing. I agree. That was definitely underseen.
A finesse too, like they show the brutality of nature, but they don't like show you the dead zebra's body. Like they don't show like the lion ripping the head off of an animal. Like it never goes into like the brutal.
African Cats was pretty brutal.
Cats is probably the most brutal one they've done. And this one has predators in it and predators that hunt. But I don't think it was ever like.
Do you have a favorite of this? My favorite is the Crimson Wing. With the little flamingos with the salt shackles.
Oh my gosh! See, Crimson Wing actually is probably the most brutal because that killed me. That like was so. But it was all of these. They tell such interesting stories, and you learn even as adults. You get to learn about these animals. Like there were swans in this one that I was like, oh, that's interesting.
And that one's really great too because they're like the legend of the lake. And some survive, and some don't. It's very like they're trying to be like Lord of the Rings or something like that with flamingos. Oh, yeah. But I love it. So good. So good. That's a really good pick. I'm glad you talked about that. My next pick is Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, and this was the second DreamWorks film of the year. And as in typical fashion with DreamWorks, the one I don't like ends up making a lot of money. The one I do like doesn't make very much money. And luckily this movie didn't cost very much, so it all worked out in the end. But I think it deserved to make the money that Boss Baby did. And Boss Baby deserved to make the money that Captain Underpants did. This was, I thought, a really genuinely funny movie. It had heart. I liked the friendship of the boys. I liked the fact that they were like really creative boys. I think it's great for kids to be encouraged to create your own comics, your own art, your own writing. Like that's really cool. And I thought that it was very creative in the animation. Oh, yeah. They used a lot of different styles, and there's something about that restrictions cause creativity because they didn't have very much budget, so they would do things like all of a sudden have sock puppets, or like there's a certain point where they're like, this would cost a lot to animate, so here's what basically happened. And I thought that they turned a disadvantage into an advantage, made it funny, and it's still my favorite mainstream animated film of the year.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Captain Underpants as well, and I completely agree with that. It should have made a lot more money than it did, and it's certainly the most daring of all of the mainstream, for sure. I think the way that they went out on the branch for all of these different animation styles. Plus, I mean, again, you know, good old SJW here. We had a black child in the leading role here. We actually had an interracial like friendship, which again,
and it was like, not like an issue.
It wasn't an issue.
They were just friends. It wasn't like
it was never talked about. It was never brought up, and it was better.
Effortless diversity. I feel like
deserved better.
Yeah.
So next up, I am going to talk about Power Rangers. So Power Rangers was much better than really it had any right to be, or I had anticipated it to be. Mm-hmm. I was like excited because I grew up on Power Rangers, so I was like, okay, let's see where we go. But then I saw those like Transformer outfits, and I was like, oh gosh, what are we getting ourselves into?
Kind of like Iron Man, too.
But again, speaking of pretty effortless diversity, Power Rangers pulled that off really well, mm-hmm. and this cast was really diverse, and they created a really good teenage coming of age movie within this like kind of comic book ridiculous film. So they gave us like really good connection, they gave us some really heartfelt moments in there, and then as a Power Rangers fan, even when it got like ridiculous and big and campy and crazy, I think that satisfied me as a Power Rangers fan too. So I just think it was a really solid film. If you were looking for something more serious and like a little bit better than the 90s shows, or if you wanted that campiness, it checked all of the boxes. So I wish more people would have just given it a chance, and this is a superhero movie that's good for all ages. It's good for smaller kids too. I think it's fun enough. Teenagers, I think, will relate, so I don't know.
I really liked it too, and I took my niece, and she loved it. She thought it was great, and I thought that the chemistry was really good between the group, and I think that was most important. And I don't know, I just felt there were certain movies this year that I felt like they did what they could with the franchise that they had. They made the best darn, like I thought that Smurfs Lost Village made about the best Smurfs movie that you can make. And I thought that, I don't know, there was just a number of times where I was like, you feel like they really tried hard, and so I enjoyed it. I think that it does sort of get messy at the end. Ironically for me, when they actually became Power Rangers is when I became less engaged with it. But it's still, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. So my next choice is Logan Lucky. And Logan Lucky, I just caught it on a good day but for whatever reason, like it's very high on the tomato meter. So I think there's very few people that like hate it. I think it's like a horrible movie. But I just thought it was so funny. I was laughing the entire time, and I thought this whole idea of like Ocean's 11 for rednecks was hilarious, and I liked all the performances. It does kind of have a third act that it doesn't need. I will totally agree with that. But the Hilary Swank stuff is just totally unnecessary. But I don't know. I just laughed. I thought it was really funny. I thought Daniel Craig was hilarious. I thought the jailbreak that they did was so fun. To me, that was the most entertaining heist movie of the year was Logan Lucky. I really liked it. And I also liked the fact this was a PG-13 movie that was like pretty mild PG-13. It didn't have like hardly any profanity. It didn't have... I mean, it was pretty family friendly, which is the last thing I would have expected from that movie. And they certainly could have made it, they could have had tons of profanity and there's stuff like, but I don't know, I just sort of appreciated that, like, it was just sort of clean, old-fashioned, silly fun. So I really liked it.
Yeah, Logan Lucky's one of those ones that I was kind of like, I liked it enough. But I definitely didn't expect to see those box office numbers. So
yeah, and it's a shame because they were really trying a creative way to release it, something different outside of the studio system, but it didn't work, unfortunately.
So next up on my list, I am going with Life. So a lot of people didn't love Life. I don't know, I was one of the few who really enjoyed it, and I think it was a better Alien film than Alien Covenant. I think it did the Alien formula much better than Alien Covenant. But overall, audiences just kind of rejected it and nobody went to go see it. But I think the cast was really strong. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's pretty much really strong in everything he does. But Ryan Reynolds was really good. Rebecca Ferguson was really good. I thought the alien design and his like transformation was really cool. And it was thrilling. I thought it grasped my attention and kept it all the way through the film. It wasn't an overly long film. It wasn't an overly complicated film. It was just kind of like a straightforward alien thriller, and I had a really good time with it, so I wish more people would have seen it.
I never saw that one, but so I'm part of the problem, evidently.
Yeah, well.
So my last one that I think should have made more money, I say this, but I totally get why some people were resistant to it, is War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, War for the Planet of the Apes is a brutal sit. It is a tough movie, especially if you're attached to these characters, which I definitely was. It's kind of a Moses Exodus story, where they're basically, the apes are in servitude basically at a certain point, and he has to kind of Caesar kind of has to free them, and it's just very intense, very brutal. But there are sort of moments of hope, I think, and moments of peace, and certainly the ending is very cathartic, and I thought it was a very bold movie for them to make. This was definitely not a safe movie at all. I thought it was sort of an exhaustion experience the first time because I saw all three in a marathon. By the time I was just like, I'm so drained. But then I saw it again and I really liked it even more the second time I saw it. And I think that Caesar is such an interesting character, and that he sort of starts to understand Koba in a new way in this movie, which I thought was interesting and nice to see. He sort of understands Koba's rationale for what he was trying to do in Dawn. And I think that you have some really touching scenes, like when the little girl brings the water to them. And so there is some sort of hope for humanity and hope for goodness. So anyway, I thought the comic relief worked pretty well. Obviously, it looks amazing. The special effects are incredible. But I get why, if some people thought it was very heavy-handed, I get that because it kind of is. But I liked it. I thought it was a very bold, beautiful, emotional film to end off the series.
Yeah, I loved War for the Planet of the Apes too, and I'm like, oh, why people? I guess I'm also one of those diehards. Like, if I see the first two, I'm just like obligated to see that third one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what the heck? The first two were so good. Where are all of you? Like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
So my last one is one that was not well received, including especially by Rachel. But I'm going to go with King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. So I know a lot of people just did not like this film, but I had a ton of fun with King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. It was a story I've heard over and over and over again, and I thought this was just kind of fun. Yes, it is kind of a Guy Ritchie bro fest, but sometimes even a good old SJW, like feminist type like myself, can enjoy a good bro fest. I thought Charlie Hunnam was good. I thought that Jude Law was chewing up that scenery. And the costume design, especially for Jude Law, was amazing. Plus, I thought the special effects were good, and I've actually really enjoyed most of Guy Ritchie's films. Like, a lot of people didn't like The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and I really liked The Man from U.N.C.L.E. too. So maybe it's just like a weird connection I have with this director that he's not able to translate to the majority of audiences. And I have to say, I get it. I knew leaving that I enjoyed it, and most people would probably not like it as much. But I just wish it had done a little bit better.
Yeah. So I can understand that. I am not a Guy Ritchie fan. I really haven't. Man from U.N.C.L.E. is probably my favorite of his movies, but I still had big time issues with the way that he stages action and the way that he's the slow motion and the way that he's is very like, I don't know, it's just not my thing. I don't really like it. I particularly hated his Sherlock Holmes movies. I'm not a fan. So, and I feel like with King Arthur, it was just kind of an exhausting experience because it was just like, pick one idea, one aesthetic, pick one thing, but it was just like, and you're getting like giant snakes and elephants and a lot of slow-mo like he likes to use, and it was just a lot to take in, and like there was a side of me that was sort of like, are we not good enough for Guinevere and Lancelot and the Knights of the Round Table, and like why can't we have just a traditional fun, like that would have, I don't know, so it just felt like it was frustrating for me, and I felt like it was asking me to care about stuff that like they hadn't built up at all. Like, what we're supposed to care about certain people that end up getting sort of sacrificed, and we didn't spend any time. We didn't know them at all. We like didn't. And there's like really like it gets very video gamey, especially towards the end. You have these scenes like where it just got. I don't know, I just felt like the special effects were like, whoa, wonky. Yeah, especially the giant snake. I was not a fan of the giant snake. And I just felt like, okay, Guy Ritchie, you don't have to use every idea you have. Pare it down a little bit. And I admit there's probably the side of me that's like, holy cow, he's doing Aladdin. Crap.
That one, oh no. We'll hold our judgment on that, Guy Ritchie.
Oh, I'm very worried, so.
But I have to admit, too, I am kind of a sucker. I think fantasy is one of the genres I'm easiest on when I'm going in.
I'm the opposite. I'm a tough sell with fantasy.
So I think fantasy, usually I come out pretty happy. So. Yeah. So those have been our picks for the most underseen mainstream studio pictures from 2017. Do you agree with our picks? Do you disagree? I'm sure you will disagree with some of the ones we picked here. But let us know, which movies do you wish more people had gone out to support and see? And let us know the reasons why you wish more people had gone out to see them. Also, make sure you go over and support Rachel's channel. I'll have all of her links to her social media and her YouTube channel down below. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining. And thank you all. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.